Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching News Night on DD India, your prime-time destination for news and analysis. It's good to see you again. Right, on the show tonight, Asia's biggest and the world's fourth largest airport is coming up in India. Now, Prime Minister Modi on Thursday laid the foundation stone of the new airport. It is located in the National Capital Region on the outskirts of New Delhi. The airport has many firsts to its credit. We'll tell you all about it momentarily. Also on the show, the Indian Navy gets a potent addition to its arsenal. Commissions a new submarine. It has advanced stealth features and long-range guided torpedoes as well as anti-ship missiles. Meanwhile, Germany and the Netherlands ready for new restrictions as cases and hospitalizations surge. The coronavirus-related deaths per day in Europe is double since September. And the World Health Organization has warned that Europe could hit new COVID records this winter. And Britain and France eye new measures to limit migration after Wednesday's deadly migrant boat tragedy that claimed more than 24 lives, including minors and pregnant women. Plus, news and updates from India and the world. All that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays foundation stone of Noida International Airport at Jewar in Uttar Pradesh. Airport to spur all-round development of the region, create jobs and promote trade. Says it will make the region a powerful symbol of the National Gati Shakti Master Plan. Prime Minister Modi takes a dig at previous governments for ignoring the development of western Uttar Pradesh. Says some political parties keep self-interest paramount. He says infrastructure is part of national policy, not part of politics. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addresses the 13th ASEM summit via video conference, calls for reform of UN Security Council and other organizations, stresses the need to mitigate the causes of persistent insecurity at the global level. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar addresses SCO Council of Heads of Government meeting, says connectivity projects should respect sovereignty and territorial integrity of nations, calls for reformed and reinvigorated multilateralism. Europe remains in the grip of COVID-19 pandemic. WHO chief warns that some people are falling into a false sense of insecurity. Death toll in Germany crosses the 100,000 mark. Slovakia goes into a 2-week lockdown. France makes COVID booster shot available to all adults. And EU drug regulator approves vaccine for children between 5 and 11 years of age. At least 8 people killed after militants launched a suicide attack on a UN security convoy in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Islamist group Al-Shabaab claims responsibility for the blast. Another major milestone for the Indian Navy, a new submarine INS Vela commissioned at Naval Dockyard in Mumbai. Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh says the Navy is monitoring defense cooperation between China and Pakistan. And the 5th National Family Health Survey confirms a demographic shift in India, finds fertility rate falls to below replacement levels, signals population is stabilizing, confirms more women than men in India for the first time. Right, let me dive straight into our cover story. Prime Minister Modi on Thursday laid the foundation stone of the Noida International Airport. It will become the logistics gateway of northern India. The maintenance, repair and overall facility will come up over 40 acres of land. Now today, India spends billions of dollars for getting these services abroad. Take a look.
उत्तर प्रदेश यानी उत्तम सुविधा, निरंतर निवेश। यूपी की इसी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पहचान को यूपी की इंटरनेशनल एयर कनेक्टिविटी नए आयाम दे रही है।
A dream come true for Eastern Uttar Pradesh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone of Noida International Airport that is coming up at Jewar. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister said, New India of the 21st century is building one of the best modern infrastructure today. Better roads, better rail network, better airports are not just infrastructure projects, but they transform the entire region and people's lives completely. An integrated multimodal cargo hub will also come up at the NIA. Prime Minister said that in a landlocked state like Uttar Pradesh, this hub will serve the industrial centres like Aligarh, Mathura, Meerut, Agra, Bijnor, Muradabad and Bareilly. He said Khurja artisans, Meerut sports industry, Saharanpur furniture, brass industry of Muradabad, Agra footwear and Petha industry will get huge support from the upcoming infrastructure.
इस एयरपोर्ट के माध्यम से पहली बार देश में इंटीग्रेटेड मल्टी मॉडल कार्गो हब की इसकी भी कल्पना साकार हो रही है। एक्सपोर्ट के एक बहुत बड़े केंद्र को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों से सीधे कनेक्ट करेगा। अब यहां के किसान साथी फल, सब्जी, मछली जैसी जल्दी खराब होने वाली उपज को सीधे एक्सपोर्ट कर पाएंगे।
The Prime Minister said that Noida International Airport will become the logistics gateway of northern India. This airport will make the entire region a powerful symbol of the National Gati Shakti Master Plan.
किसी भी क्षेत्र में एयरपोर्ट के आने से परिवर्तन का एक ऐसा चक्र शुरू होता है जो चारों दिशाओं को लाभ पहुंचाता है। पश्चिमी यूपी के हजारों लोगों को ये एयरपोर्ट नए रोजगार भी देगा। जब एयर कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ती है तो टूरिज्म भी उतना ही ज्यादा फलता फूलता है। पश्चिमी यूपी के प्रसिद्ध टूरिस्ट और आस्था से जुड़े बड़े केंद्रों के लिए नोएडा इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट भी यही काम करने वाला है।
The Noida International Airport will also house a state-of-the-art MRO service facility, cutting flight maintenance costs, most of which flow out of the country. Its dedicated cargo terminal will have a capacity of 20 lakh metric tons, which will be expanded to 80 lakh metric tons. Noida and Delhi will be connected to the airport through hassle-free metro service. All major nearby roads and highways like the Yamuna Expressway, Western Peripheral Expressway, Eastern Peripheral Expressway, Delhi-Mumbai Expressway and others will be connected to the airport. The airport will also be linked to the planned Delhi-Varanasi high-speed rail, enabling the journey between Delhi and airport in only 21 minutes.
All of us have phones, all of us are using this whole digital world, to maneuver anything. So same way, we want to create a digital airport, probably the first kind in India.
We want to be very people-centric, focused on the passengers, so have short ways, easy connections. Then second one is we want to be a green airport.
It will be the second international airport to come up in Delhi NCR, and the first phase is scheduled to be completed by 2024.
State-of-the-art facilities and infrastructure that is not only going to boost connectivity for the region but also going to provide employment in terms of massive tourist attraction and employment for the locals here. With camera person Anil, this is Meghna Dev for DD India from Noida International Airport, Jewar.
Now, Prime Minister Modi also says infrastructure is part of national policy, not just politics. He said his government was making sure that projects do not get stuck, do not hang in limbo or do not go astray. He slammed previous governments for depriving Uttar Pradesh of much needed development in general and Western UP in particular. My colleague Meghna Dev and Arun Sharma report.
Noida International Airport is a shining example of Prime Minister Modi's spirit of nation first. Spread over more than 1,300 hectares of land, the airport is a dream project of Modi government for enhancing overall connectivity. Prime Minister stressed that infrastructure development is not part of politics but part of national policy.
हमारे देश में कुछ राजनीतिक दलों ने हमेशा अपने स्वार्थ को सर्वोपरि रखा है। इन लोगों की सोच रही है अपना स्वार्थ, सिर्फ अपना खुद का, परिवार का या जहां रहते उस इलाके का, उसी को वो विकास मानते थे। जबकि हम राष्ट्रप्रथम, नेशन फर्स्ट की भावना पर चलते हैं।
Slamming the previous government for their self-centered approach, Prime Minister said that previous governments kept Uttar Pradesh in deprivation and darkness. The Prime Minister cited Jewar Airport as an example of how the earlier governments in Uttar Pradesh and at the centre ignored the development of Western Uttar Pradesh. He said 2 decades ago the BJP government of UP had conceptualized this project. But later this airport was entangled in the tussle of the earlier governments in Delhi and Lucknow for many years.
पहले किसानों की जमीनों को लेकर जिस तरह की गड़बड़ियां होती थी, उसे वो भी प्रोजेक्ट की देरी में बहुत बड़ा रोड़ा बन जाती थी। यही आसपास पहले की सरकारों के दौरान अनेक ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट हैं जिनके लिए किसानों से जमीन तो ली गई, लेकिन उनमें या तो मुआवजे से जुड़ी समस्याएं रही या फिर सालों साल वो जमीन बेकार पड़ी है।
Prime Minister said that earlier farmers had to wait for years to get compensation for their lands. Now all that has changed.
पहले की सरकारों ने जिस उत्तर प्रदेश को अभाव और अंधकार में बनाए रखा, पहले की सरकारों ने जिस उत्तर प्रदेश को हमेशा झूठे सपने दिखाए, वही उत्तर प्रदेश आज राष्ट्रीय ही नहीं, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय छाप छोड़ रहा है।
Prime Minister remarked that after 7 decades of independence, for the first time, Uttar Pradesh has started getting what it has always deserved. He added that with efforts of the double-engine government, Uttar Pradesh is turning into the most connected region of the country. With Arun Sharma and Meghna Dev for DD India.
Right, let me now share some more information about the Noida International Airport for viewers joining us from home and abroad. First up, in terms of area. Now, it's spread across 1,334 hectares or nearly 13 odd square kilometers. Next up, the location. It's coming up at Jewar in the Yamuna Expressway International Development Authority's notified area in district Gautam Budh Nagar in Uttar Pradesh. It's located 72 kilometers from the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, about 52 kilometers from Noida, about 130 kilometers from Agra and 90 odd kilometers from a multimodal logistics hub at Dadri. Next up, some company info. The company is called Noida International Airport Limited. It's a joint venture company. And if you talk about the stakeholders in this company, the UP government has 37.5% stake in the company. The new Okla Industrial Development Authority, or Noida, also has 37.5% stake in it. The Greater Noida Industrial Development Authority has a 12.5% stake, and the Yamuna Expressway International Development Authority also has the remaining 12.5%. Next up, construction. In 4 phases, The airport will be constructed and the phase 1 will be ready by September 2024. Next up is the capacity. Now, phase 1 of the airport will have accommodate 12 million passengers per year. Now to the features of this airport. The airport has many firsts to its credit. It is India's first net zero emissions airport. It's a clean and green airport. Also, for the first time, an airport in India has been planned as an integrated multimodal cargo hub, and airlines can operate domestic and international flights without having to reposition their aircraft. What it means is this: it will offer a quick aircraft turnaround and allow seamless passenger transfers. And last but not the least, connectivity. A metro will run between the Noida and Delhi airports, and the airport will be linked to the proposed Delhi-Varanasi high-speed railway. So you will be able to travel from Delhi to the airport in 21 minutes flat. Right. Time now for our In Focus segment, in which we're discussing about Asia's largest airport coming up in India. And joining me are two guests, Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, aviation expert and former ED of Air India, and Prafulla Kethkar, editor, Organizer Weekly. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. Mr. Bhargav, if I can start with you, how do you look at this new airport, brand new, bigger, better airport coming up in Noida? A big boost to aviation, would you say?
See, I would look at it from the national perspective. J.R.D. Tata had given Indian aviation a head start in 1932, with India operating the first international flight in 1948, when the airlines now dominating Indian skies from the Gulf and Southeast Asia were not even existing. So I see in today's foundation stone laying of the airport as a government resolve that it's going to be looking at a scale, big one, big airports, and giving India a new thrust in civil aviation. First point. Second, this airport, of course, has multimodal features, as you said very clearly, that you have the cargo hubs, the MRO, and all the other facilities available. It's a greenfield airport. So land has not been a constraint. So the best of best features that are existing in anywhere in the world, at any airport, is going to be part of it. And what we have been saying repeatedly is that aviation is a big catalyst for economic growth. You set up an aviation industry in the airport, and what do you see? It's not just the airlines coming and taking off and landing. It's the hotels that come up. It's the infrastructure that gets developed. The exports get developed. The employment gets generated. Everything that you look at it is a positive sign. And what amazes me is the government thinking on the size of the airport. The largest in Asia, the fourth biggest in the world. Now, when have we started thinking on these lines? We had developed, India had seen the development or redevelopment, I would say, of the Delhi airport, Mumbai airport, Bangalore airport, and Hyderabad airport. Some of them were greenfield airports. Now, none of them could think of that let's have a composite airport which has everything to go by. Now, when you are looking at India as a major exporter, as a major economic player, you cannot achieve those goals unless you have an airport which is efficient and which has all the facilities available within its own premises. Now, this approach of the government is brilliant. And I have often said that India had allowed itself to be nirbhar on the Southeast Asian carriers and Gulf carriers for taking away India originating traffic. Prime Minister made an oblique reference to it, that 85% of maintenance of Indian aircraft is done abroad. Let's not also overlook the fact that over 80%, 75 to 80% of India originating traffic is taken away by foreign carriers. Now, once you have an airport which can be developed as a global hub, all kinds of aircraft, large capacity, large long-haul aircraft can land, you will find India entering into a totally new phase. And Noida is going to be providing it. So it's not just the economic growth. It's not just that exports will be facilitated. It is that India's reputation as a major aviation player will be coming back once you have an airport of this size and this efficient operation that you will have.
Indeed, brilliant and a game changer, says Mr. Bhargav. Coming to you now, Mr. Ketkar. Now, UP is the only state to have 5 international airports now. It augurs well for development of Western UP in particular, besides the state and the country at large.
Good evening, Ramesh. If you remember, we discussed when Prime Minister launched the the eastern on the eastern side the mega highway project, and that time also I mentioned that when infrastructure becomes the a key policy initiative of any government, it is not just the connectivity that makes the difference. It is the investment, it is the 2 connecting points, it is the local employability aspect, and along with that, the kind of, because if you see now Delhi airport, the kind of pressure it is going through, the kind of traffic it has, now it will be diverted to this new international airport. It is going to be an aviation hub, as Boris rightly said, 4th in the world, one of the biggest in Asia, and built with the modern, efficient, high-tech facilities. That is going to be a key, the way entire idea is conceptualized. So I think what Prime Minister said, that infrastructure is a national policy.
Right.
It's a Rashtra Niti, not just Rajaniti. I think that is a very important message when, how to look at the entire infrastructural initiative. Even the conceptualization of this entire project is very interesting, because it was started in during NDA 1. That is Mr. Vajpayee's thing. After that, Yamuna Expressway came up, but the Jewar was still in a lingo because of the land acquisition related issues, and the Samajwadi Party government led by Mr. Akhilesh Yadav almost had given up on this project. In fact, he had written to the Aviation Ministry that it should be completely shelved. Now, with this kind of where the Noida International Airport Private Limited coming up with Uttar Pradesh government of India, Noida Development Authority, Greater Noida Development Authority, and Yamuna Development Authority. So coming up with such a kind of company, and at the same time taking world's best technological know-how as far as the infrastructure development is concerned. So it is not just the innovative shareholding, but the company, the Zurich International Airport AG. So that they are going to build up this infrastructure. I think it is going to be a best win-win situation where whether a city or airport, developing in such an area will provide a totally new kind of infrastructure-based infrastructure hub for the Western UP.
Absolutely, it's a win-win proposition, says Mr. Ketkar. Mr. Bhargav, you spent a lifetime in the aviation industry. Help our viewers understand a couple of things here. One, it will no doubt decongest the existing Delhi airport. At the same time, we talk about features of this new Noida airport. It will be the first net zero emissions airport. I'm told it's planned and conceptualized as a cargo hub, and it enables faster turnaround of aircraft. So help our viewers demystify some of these, the terminologies associated with aviation industry.
As I said, this airport has been conceptualized, keeping in view the best features which may not be existing at one airport globally, but they were incorporated all of them and conceptualized the airport. So it's not a question of just being efficient, cost effective when you have everything available in-house. So all these things will render Indian aviation as a key player in the market.
Right.
As I said earlier, how long can we be dependent on the Gulf carriers or the Southeast Asian carriers to harness India originating traffic? Now, Air India's takeover by Tata's is one example. They'll be able to expand and ensure that it is the Indian carriers which harness. Because what happens when you give away the bilateral rights and allow the foreign carriers to dominate, you create the fleet expansions in their countries. The employment is created in those countries. So it is a loser. So what I find it significant, and that's why I describe today's function as a historic one, is government's pronouncement that this is the way they're going to look at civil aviation in the future. And there can be nothing more heartening for a person who spent his lifetime in the industry to see India getting back on track. As I said earlier, JRD Tata gave the head start. We were dominating. We were, in fact, trying to, impart lessons on how to start an airline to Singapore Airlines and some Gulf carriers. But losing our skies to them was something that we were not very happy with. So today's function is symbolic in that way, that the government has made it very clear the path they're going to be choosing for future of Indian aviation. And when you look at these features, when we are talking of climate change, the emissions come into the picture, efficiency come in. Why should Indian aircraft and the fleet of all private carriers is growing in a big way be sent abroad for maintenance? Government, of course, will have to supplement it with tax reforms as far as the MRO is concerned. Because a lot of airlines send their aircraft abroad because taxation is high in our country. So once all these changes are coming, and I'm very confident after today's function, and that's why I describe it as historic, that the government has the needed realization that aviation acts as a catalyst for economic growth.
Absolutely.
And if Prime Minister's vision, de udega desh ka aam nagrik, has to be fulfilled, then you've got to make your airports efficient and productive. Indeed. And they can only be done when you have the scale of operations. And it's so heartening to see it coming up in Uttar Pradesh. Because the moment you have the Uttar Pradesh economic activity growing, performance improving, it reflects on the national average, national performance. Such a heartening feature. And then, of course, is the fact that we got tourism, a lot of places of historical importance in Uttar Pradesh, which will get to an easy kind of a thing. People will be able to travel and say, okay, I'm landing from abroad at the Jewar airport.
So tourism, travel, infrastructure, indeed.
Other airports in UP, or by the beautiful roads that have been made.
Absolutely.
We can drive down to those places, etc. So take the holistic picture of what we have achieved.
Indeed.
And as an aviation person, there could not have been a better news than what we witnessed
without
today.
doubt.
That this is the kind of vision that we have, and let's hope it's not confined to just one airport. Many other airports in India follow and said, look, we have an example. If the UP can deliver it...
Mr. Bhargav, if I can just quickly bring in Mr. Ketkar one last time on the discussion, if you don't mind. Mr. Ketkar, I'm running out of time. Very quickly, in under a minute, if you will, I want to dwell on what the Prime Minister said in his speech there. He slammed previous governments for putting self-interest before everything else, including development. The question is, what is happening differently under Prime Minister Modi that we can see the airport becoming a reality?
See, as I said, when Vajpayee government was there, the then Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Rajnath Singh, mooted this idea. And if you see, in between, Ms. Mayawati tried to propose a Taj Aviation Hub, but again, it was more got into what kind of land acquisition plan, and here we clearly saw the way in 2017 Uttar Pradesh government in collaboration with the center came up with this plan of smooth land acquisition under Noida International Airport Limited. And 1,334 hectare land was handed over with the Chief Minister's sanction. So it was not just the conception. If you see the kind of connectivity that is visualized through this, it is not just one airport. It is the entire project which connects Yamuna Expressway, Eastern Peripheral Expressway, Delhi Mumbai Expressway, and as you mentioned in your first report, the proposed high-speed rail which connects Delhi and Varanasi. So
Indeed.
it is going to be the cultural hub, growth hub, and we can't take away politics, even though Prime Minister mentioned it. But good infrastructure policy can be good politics also. That is the message, I think, from this particular initiative.
Right. On that note, may I thank both my guests, Mr. Ketkar and Mr. Bhargav, for sharing their insights with our viewers in India and abroad. Appreciate it. Right, moving on for now, Union Minister for Home and Cooperation Ahmed Shah addressed the annual session and AGM of the Indian Chamber of Commerce via video conference. The theme of his address was India at 75, Empowering Northeast India. He said in the last 7 years, there's been a paradigm shift in enhancing the infrastructure in the Northeast. Before 2024, all the capitals of the Northeast will be connected with an airport, he says.
पूर्वोत्तर के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बढ़ाने में भी बहुत बड़ा 7 साल के अंदर आमूल चूर परिवर्तन, बड़ी बड़ी योजनाएं आज पूर्वोत्तर की मैं आपको दावे के साथ कह सकता हूं 2024 में हम फिर से जनादेश लेने जाएंगे। पूर्वोत्तर की सभी राजधानियां एयरपोर्ट से जुड़ी हुई होगी। पहले 2 ही थी, सभी राजधानियां एयरपोर्ट से जुड़ी हुई होगी। पूर्वोत्तर के 8 में से 7 स्टेट रेल से जुड़े हुए और ढेर सारे नेशनल हाईवे बनाने का काम किया है। लगभग नेशनल हाईवे की 32 सड़कों का निर्माण 12,000 करोड़ से किया है। लगभग अरुणाचल के अंदर और 1200 करोड़ रुपया लिया है, लगाया है। पूर्वोत्तर के चहुमुखी विकास को करने के लिए मैं बहुत डिटेल में नहीं जाता, मगर कुछ आंकड़े जरूर देना चाहता हूं।
In other news, the INS Vela, the 4th Indian submarine in the series of 6 submarines, was commissioned in the presence of Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh at the Naval Dockyard in Mumbai on Thursday. The Scorpion-class submarines are being built in India by the Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, Mumbai, with help from the Naval Group of France. The commissioning of the 4th in-class submarine is a major milestone. The INS Vela would be another potent platform in the Western Naval Command's arsenal.
Another major milestone for Indian Navy's Project 75 and Make in India initiative. INS Vela, a testimony to Atmanirbhar Bharat, cutting-edge technology and dedicated teamwork, was commissioned at Naval Dockyard, Mumbai on Thursday. It is 4th of the Project 75 submarine built by Mazagon Dock Limited. INS Vela would form part of the Western Naval Command's submarine fleet and would be another potent part of its arsenal. Chief of the Naval Staff Admiral Karambir Singh attended the ceremony at Naval Dockyard in Mumbai. Navy Chief said that submarine will play a crucial role in enhancing Navy's ability to protect India's maritime interests in today's dynamic and complex security situation.
In its new incarnation, Vela is a potent platform with an ability to undertake the entire spectrum of submarine operations. And given today's dynamic and complex security situation, Vela's capability and firepower will play a crucial role in enhancing Navy's ability to protect, promote and preserve India's maritime interests across the seascape of the Indian Ocean region, while acting as a clear deterrent to our adversaries.
Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh said that the Navy is closely monitoring defense cooperation between China and Pakistan.
ये जो कोऑपरेशन है चीन और पाकिस्तान का, इसको हम बहुत क्लोजली देख रहे हैं। काफ़ी सारा हार्डवेयर चाइना से पाकिस्तान को एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा है, जैसे कि शिप्स हैं, सबमरीन्स हैं, और इससे यहाँ का जो सिक्योरिटी डायनामिक्स में काफ़ी फ़र्क पड़ेगा। इसके लिए हमको प्रिपेयर्ड रहना पड़ेगा।
The Scorpion class submarines are being built in India by the Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, Mumbai, under collaboration with MS Naval Group, France. The commissioning of the 4th in-class submarine is a major milestone achieved. The Scorpion submarines are extremely potent platforms. They have advanced stealth features and are also equipped with both long-range guided torpedoes as well as anti-ship missiles. These submarines have a state-of-the-art sonar and sensor suite permitting outstanding operational capabilities. They also have an advanced permanent magnetic synchronous motor as its propulsion motor. Earlier on November 21, INS Visakhapatnam, a P-15B stealth-guided missile destroyer, was commissioned into the Indian Navy. It was the first of the 4 Visakhapatnam-class destroyers indigenously designed by the Indian Navy's in-house organization, Directorate of Naval Design, and constructed by Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, Mumbai. The delivery of Vela on Thursday is yet another affirmation of the impetus being given by the Indian Navy towards consolidating its position as a builder's navy and indicative MDL's capabilities as a premier ship and submarine building yard. Besides senior civil and military officials of Ministry of Defence, crew of the erstwhile Vela, a Russian-origin Foxtrot-class submarine which was decommissioned in 2009, were also present amongst the guests on this occasion. The commissioning of the submarine is coinciding with Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and Swarnim Vijay Varsh celebrations. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
The 19th Maritime Search and Rescue Board meeting was held in New Delhi on Thursday, in which guidelines were formulated under the National Search and Rescue Plan. Now, Search and Rescue Awards for the year 2019-20 and 2020-21 were conferred to winners under various categories. Secretary Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways and Secretary Department of Fisheries took part with 31 other agencies. The Indian Coast Guard as the nodal agency for search and rescue in the 4.6 million square kilometers of area near the coastlines of the Indian Peninsula.
Since the inception of the service and the ratification and empowerment of the Indian Coast Guard as a national coordinating agency for search and rescue with all 31 stakeholders, we have been rescued 10,000 lives out at sea since 1978.
And shifting focus from defense to diplomacy now, External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar addressed the 20th meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of Government held in Kazakhstan's capital Nur Sultan in a virtual format. Minister Jaishankar said that today the world acknowledges that India is among the few large economies that have delivered in letter and spirit on the Paris Agreement. Prime Minister Modi's recent call for One Sun, One World, One Grid and Green Grid initiatives is expected to spur the development of a cohesive and robust global grid. India, he says, is ready to share its experience in climate change mitigation and adaptation in the SCO format. He said this is the time to bring in much needed reforms to our global institutions, including World Health Organization, and rework our development strategies to face a post-COVID-19 world. For this, we need a reformed and reinvigorated multilateralism that reflects today's realities, which gives voice to all stakeholders, addresses contemporary challenges, and puts human beings at the center of one's thought and policies. He said, India believes that greater connectivity is an economic force multiplier, which has acquired greater salience in the post-COVID era. But any serious connectivity initiative must be consultative, transparent, and participatory. It must conform to the most basic principle of international law, that is, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. He said India considers SCO as an important regional group to promote cooperation in various fields based on universally recognized international norms, good governance, rule of law, openness, transparency, and equality. He said it's unfortunate to note that there have been repeated attempts to deliberately bring bilateral issues into SCO. And this, he says, violates the well-established principles and norms of the SCO Charter. Such acts, he says, are counterproductive to the spirit of consensus and cooperation that define this organization and should be condemned. Now the news, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addressed the plenary session of the 13th ASEM Summit virtually on Thursday. He emphasized the need for reforms in the UN Security Council and other key international organizations so as to make them reflective of the contemporary realities of today and capable enough to deal with the contemporary challenges. Vice President Naidu said the world is witnessing rapid economic, technological and security challenges today. The current multilateral system has fallen short in providing an effective response to these challenges. He said reformed multilateralism is a key driving principle that India has pursued for a purposeful reform of existing global institutional structures. The two-day summit is being hosted by Cambodia in a virtual format with the theme Strengthening Multilateralism for Shared Growth. Observing that without peace, development suffers, Vice President Naidu highlighted that the lack of development and stifled economic progress create a fertile ground for violence and instability. It called for efforts towards promoting economic activity and stressing the need to mitigate the causes of persistent insecurity at the global level. He highlighted the need for reforms in the international structure responsible for maintaining global peace and security. In some good news, India got elected to the World Heritage Committee of UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, that's UNESCO, with 142 votes for a 4-year term from 2021 to 2025. Minister Jaishankar shared a tweet saying, sharing the good. He says, good day for Indian diplomacy, elected to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee for 2021-25. Praveen Sinha also elected to the Interpol Executive Committee. Keep it up, Team MEA, unquote. Moving on, the Indian government has released the National Family Health Survey for the year 2020-2021. The key aspects of the survey include population, reproductive and child health, family welfare and nutrition. The total fertility rate slipped below the replacement level for the first time. My colleague Tapas Bhattacharya has more.
India hit a major demographic milestone in the last couple of years as its total fertility rate slipped below the replacement level for the first time, show the findings of the latest National Family Health Survey. The government released the fact sheets of key indicators on population, reproductive and child health, family welfare, nutrition and others for India, as well as 14 states and union territories. The states and union territories which were surveyed in this phase were Arunachal Pradesh, Chandigarh, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, NCT of Delhi, Odisha, Puducherry, Punjab, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. The total fertility rate of the average number of children per woman in India is now just 2. The replacement mark, 2.1 children per woman, is the fertility rate that keeps a population stable over time by balancing births with deaths. Institutional births have increased substantially from 79% to 89% at all India level. Institutional delivery is 100% in Puducherry and Tamil Nadu and more than 90% in 7 states and union territories out of 12 Phase 2 states and union territories. As per the 5th round of National Family and Health Survey, India now has more women than men. There are 1,020 women for every 1,000 men as per the report. Summary findings showed a 12.3 percentage point increase over the previous edition of the survey in the coverage of health insurance to 41% of households surveyed, an indication of the impact of government's flagship Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana that was launched in September of 2018. Child nutrition indicators show a slight improvement at all India level as stunting has declined from 38% to 36%. Anemia among children and women continues to be a cause of concern. More than half of the children and women are anemic in all Phase 2 states and union territories and all India level. Women's empowerment indicators portray considerable improvement at all India levels and across all 14 states and union territories. Significant progress has been recorded between National Family and Health Survey with respect to women operating bank accounts from 53% to 79% at all India level. More than 70% of women in every state and union territory in the second phase have operational bank accounts. Taposh Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
More than 24 migrants trying to reach the UK drowned off the northern coast of France on Wednesday. It's been described as the deadliest accident since a narrow stretch of the Atlantic Ocean, which separates the UK from continental Europe, became a hub for migrants from Africa and Asia who have been increasingly using small boats to reach England from France since 2018.
Britain's rift with France over how to deal with a surge of people risking their lives by trying to cross the English Channel in small dinghies came to the fore once again, after more than 24 people died after their dinghy capsized while crossing the Channel from France to Britain. French Interior Minister said that 34 people were found in the capsized dinghy at sea, 31 of whom had died and 2 were rescued. 1 was still missing.
As of now, 31 people died or were not resuscitated, and there are 2 survivors who are currently being treated and whose lives are also unfortunately in danger. Among these 31 dead, we know that there are 5 women and 1 little girl. For now, we don't have more information on the identities of these people.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was shocked and appalled by the deaths of at least 31 migrants in the English Channel on Wednesday. Johnson said that the tragedy showed how vital it was to step up our efforts to break the business model of human traffickers. He also listed out steps taken by Britain to help patrol the beaches.
Our offer is to increase our support, but also to work together with our partners on the beaches concerned, on the landing, the launching grounds for these boats, and that's something I hope that will be acceptable now in view of what has happened.
Though both Paris and London blamed smugglers, Calais Mayor blamed Britain for the problem, saying it should change its immigration policies. While Britain's Immigration Minister Kevin Foster said that Britain wants to work not just with France but also with other European partners on this issue.
We're clear we don't just see this as an issue that France needs to deal with, but one that we want to work together with France and our wider European partners, because we only need to look at the situation in the Mediterranean or Eastern Europe to see this isn't just an issue in the Channel, to break the business model of these gangs, and that includes things like securing returns agreements as well as the policing and law enforcement presence that there is in the Pas de Calais.
This tragedy, which is one too many, is the result of successive failures with regard to this migration policy, failures of Boris Johnson, which leaves no choice to our region to have to put in place resources because he doesn't have the courage to take it to himself, to take responsibility and choose in his territory what kind of immigration he wants.
Earlier in September this year, the United Kingdom had approved plans to turn away boats carrying migrants and asylum seekers to its shores, deepening a rift with France over this issue. The number of migrants crossing the Channel in small dinghies has risen this year after British and French governments clamped down on other forms of illegal entry, such as hiding in the back of trucks crossing from the ports in France. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And staying in Europe, the European Union's health agency has urged EU member states to urgently introduce measures to counter surging COVID-19 cases. And this after World Health Organization warned that hundreds of thousands may die across Europe this winter. With more than 2.5 million cases and almost 30,000 deaths reported in the past week alone, Europe is by far the region currently worst hit by the virus. Meanwhile, European Commission has proposed that European Union residents will need to have COVID-19 vaccine booster jabs if they want to travel to other country in the bloc next summer free of tests or quarantines.
Europe is once again the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many countries have reintroduced stricter measures to control the spread of virus. However, WHO chief warned that the virus would keep spreading intensely as societies return to the social mixing and mobility of a pre-pandemic period in the run-up to the year-end holidays. WHO chief asserted that vaccination, wearing masks and social distancing remain key to the halting transmission.
In many countries and communities, we're concerned about the false sense of security that vaccines have ended the pandemic and that people who are vaccinated do not need to take any other precautions. While Europe is again the epicenter of the pandemic, no country or region is out of the woods.
In Germany, COVID-19 measures have been ramped up after the total number of coronavirus-related deaths in the country soared over 1 lakh on Wednesday. According to the latest data released by Germany's Disease Control Agency, daily new cases on Wednesday hit a new record of 75,961, bringing the total number of infections to 55,73,756. France said on Thursday it would make COVID-19 booster shots available to all adults, toughen rules on wearing face masks and ramp up health pass checks as it seems to curb a fifth wave of infections that risk undermining its economic recovery. The number of infections is doubling every 11 days in France, but officials said that there was no need to follow European countries such as Austria that have reimposed lockdowns.
The booster shots will be available to all adults aged 18 and above, 5 months after their last jab, meaning that in practice, this concerns 25 million French people, of whom 6 million have already received their booster. There remains 19 million French people to date who remain eligible for vaccine booster and whom we invite to get vaccinated in the next 2 months.
In Spain, a slight but steady rise in COVID-19 cases was registered during last month and encouraged elderly Spaniards to receive a booster ahead of Christmas. The latest wave of infections in Spain, which has fully vaccinated a hefty 79% of its population, remains well below levels seen in Austria and the Netherlands, but authorities see the risk of it spiraling rapidly out of control. Russian President Vladimir Putin participated in trials of a nasal form of a vaccine against COVID-19. Putin was re-vaccinated against the coronavirus on Sunday with Russia's Sputnik Light shot. Russia's flagship vaccine investor said that the nasal form of the vaccine would be sold to other countries from next year. In another development, the European Union's drug regulator approved the use of Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine for children between the ages of 5 and 11 on Thursday, paving the way for them to be given a first shot as Europe struggles to contain a surge in infections. The European Medicines Agency EMA recommended that the vaccine will be given in 2 doses of 10 micrograms 3 weeks apart as an injection in the upper arm. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Meanwhile, Slovakia went into a 2-week lockdown on Thursday as the country with one of the EU's lowest vaccination rates reported a critical situation in hospitals and new infections that topped global tables. Slovakia, a country of 5.5 million, ordered all but essential shops and services closed and banned people from traveling outside their districts unless going to work, school or a doctor. Gatherings of more than 6 people are banned. At least 8 people were killed in Somalia's capital on Thursday when Islamist militants launched a suicide attack on a United Nations convoy using a vehicle laden with explosives. The Islamist group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the blast, which rocked Mogadishu and injured at least 23 people, including students, sending a column of smoke above the city. Witnesses said gunfire echoed around the scene. It was not immediately clear if any UN personnel was among those killed or injured in the blast, which targeted the UN convoy as it passed near the site of a school. The blast near the K4 junction in the heart of Mogadishu was so large that walls of a school nearby collapsed. Cars were mangled in the explosion. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for an end to fighting in Ethiopia. He urged Ethiopian leaders to follow Colombia's example of peace. Guterres addressed the media with Colombia's President Ivan Duque in the capital, Bogota.
The peace process in Colombia today inspires me to make an urgent call to the protagonists of the conflict in Ethiopia for an unconditional and immediate ceasefire, to save the country and to allow for dialogue between Ethiopians, to resolve the crisis and allow for Ethiopia to go back to contributing to stability in the region. I would like Colombia to be an example to follow for the leaders of Ethiopia.
And now to all the news from the 52nd International Film Festival of India. It's a flavor of the action, including the only Sanskrit film featuring in the Indian Panorama section, which is attracting much attention. My colleague Rukma Datta reports from Goa.
As curtains come down on the 52nd edition of International Film Festival of India that draws closer, film buffs here do not want to miss any opportunity to watch movies. Bhagwan Dachukam, the only Sanskrit film in Indian Panorama in IFFI, is attracting immense attention, a satire and a comedy. We spoke with the director of the film, Yadu Vijayakrishnan.
I'm very honored to be part of this because right now my film is screening here. It's a different experience. I'm really excited about this. It's actually based on a 7th century play. There are, I think, around 20 or 25 Sanskrit films made so far in India. I think maybe 30. But if you can see that there's a pattern. They are all follows a serious tone, and they are all desaturated color tone also. And I thought to make it colorful and make it comedy. So that's why I chose this subject. It's basically a satirical play written during that era.
This time, along with the International Film Festival of India, the BRICS Film Festival is also being organized and attracting a lot of spectators seen thronging the venue to watch films from various BRICS countries. Rahul Ravil, chairperson of the BRICS Films Jury, had only the best things to say about the films that have come in.
Initiative बहुत ही अच्छा है. It's opening up a new dimension. मतलब ये जो 5 countries है BRICS की, उनमें फिर डाइवर्स कल्चर्स ये सब देखने को मिल रहे हैं. ये हो रहा है कि सिनेमा से एक चीज़ सीमेंट हो रही है, जो रिलेशनशिप जो 5 कंट्रीज का है, जो मेरा ख्याल है ब्रिक्स का मेन स्टे है.
The screening of Tamil film Kudangal, directed by P. Vinod Raj and making its way to the Oscars, also took place on the 25th. Rukma Datta's report from Goa, News Night Desk, DD India.
To cricket now, debutant Shreyas Iyer remained unbeaten on 75, while Ravindra Jadeja scored his 17th Test half-century as India ended day 1 at 258 for 4 against New Zealand at Kanpur. The duo added 102 runs in the final session without losing a wicket as India steered towards recovery after a shaky start to the innings. After opting to bat, India found themselves in trouble after Mayank Agarwal was caught fishing by Tom Blundell. Kyle Jamieson drew the first blood in the 7th over of the Indian innings. But Cheteshwar Pujara and Shubman Gill took India out of initial trouble, with both steering the side to 82 for 1 at lunch. Gill could have been dismissed in the 9th over of the innings from Ajaz Patel, but no appeal was made for a leg before wicket. Gill eventually reached his half-century but was dismissed immediately after play began in the second session. Jamieson struck for the Kiwis again, casting Gill to inflict a second blow for India. Iyer and Jadeja ensure that India do not lose any more wickets before the close of play. And with that, it's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye.